Commission members, we appear to be having some sort of difficulty with getting everyone logged into today's meeting in PrimeGov. What I'm going to ask you all to do is look at the meeting in the public portal. When you're at your dashboard and you pull down that meetings and committees arrow, there's a search portal that you can click on. You'll have access to all of the same meeting materials, but you will not be able to vote in PrimeGov. So we're just going to do a voice vote. It's a relatively short agenda today, so that should get us, shouldn't cause much of a delay. And we'll try to figure out why no one can see the meeting after that. It is online for the public, just for some reason it's not up for you all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the December Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I will say happy holidays to everybody in attendance, both in here and the millions watching us worldwide. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, and this is our final meeting of 2021. It's been a very, very hectic year. Lots of changes. As you can see, we're having some technological issues today. But with that in mind, I did want to say thank you to the city staff and everybody that helps out and supports the Historic Preservation Commission. Without the work that everybody does to get us to this point, it would be impossible for us to facilitate this meeting. Also want to recognize all of the applicants, all the engaged citizens, all of the neighborhood representatives, and everybody else that is in this process. We know it's grueling, we know it's stressful, but ultimately we think it makes for a better product for our city, our community, and everybody involved. So thank you guys for everything you do. As a reminder for today, we do ask that you refrain from individual conversations during this meeting. This does ensure that all commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please, if you don't mind, keep quiet until you're called upon, and when you speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak. Anybody speaking will be given 3 minutes to relay information, and we're obviously going to work very, very hard to stay on that schedule. So again, please remember that 3-minute rule. If we do have to stop this meeting for any reason and we're unable to continue, all of the remaining items will be moved to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting, which will be held on Wednesday, January 5th at 2 p.m. right here in the Municipal Council Buildings chambers. The agenda and documents are located online in PrimeGov. If you're following along, please select the agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see all items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online, and they were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared during today's meeting. And can we please get a roll call?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Wyman Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Corbin. Commissioner Farzani.
Present.
Commissioner Jordan.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Present. Commissioner Milner.
She said mine. And present.
Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Remy. You have quorum.
Thank you. So procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, we will ask that any participants who are unfamiliar with that process, please refer to the procedures section. 2 items we want to specifically note from this meeting process involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. That takes us to item number 2. Katie, what news do we have from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
One, I want to note that we are planning to have a commission committee training for all of our commission and committees that the planning department staffs on February 4th, and we'll get a save the date out to you all for that. That'll be the morning of February 4th, which is a Friday. The other item I wanted to note under this portion of the agenda is that we have been contacted by a representative of the Redeemer Lutheran Church, which is at 1524 Northeast Grand. asking if the commission would consider initiating landmark designation for the church. So if there are no objections, we'll put that initiation on the commission's agenda for the next meeting. You all, when we do a landmark designation, we don't do these often, but the way the process works is you all vote first on whether or not to initiate the process, and then it comes back to you with a designation report, and you would vote whether or not to recommend designation. So this is just starting the process. We would work with the church and write that up and take it through. And they will get documentation to us of the support of the church governing body. So
Do we need to do anything to memorialize
we don't
our?
need to act on that. Just if there are no concerns or objections to that, we'll move forward.
I do not have any concerns or objections. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any concerns or objections? Okay, we'll move forward. Excellent, thank you. Let's see, item number 3, have the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the November 3rd meeting? And do we have any questions or a motion to accept or modify?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting. I don't
Excellent.
remember what date it was.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, seconded by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. All in favor? Do we need to do a voice vote on this, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay,
Commissioner Fudge,
I vote yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yes. Yay.
Commissioner Farzani,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Yay.
Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Passes.
Excellent. That motion is carried by, I believe, unanimous decision. Katie, on item number 4, anything from code enforcement from last month?
Nothing particular to report from the code enforcement report. As always, if the public or if members of the commission have questions or concerns about an item you notice on that report, feel free to contact staff or to contact the city's action center for more information.
Okay. Do we have any continuance announcements or requests?
We have one new request to continue HPCA 21-00118 to the January meeting. I always have to double check what date it is in January. I believe it's the January 5th meeting, 2022.
Perfect. Do we need a motion to move that, or is it just?
We do need a motion and a vote to continue that item.
I'll make a motion to move, to continue, HPCA 21-00118 to the January 5th commission
I'll second that.
meeting date.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Farzani,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
A.
Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, that motion passed unanimously. We will continue that to next month's meeting. Katie, anything from public hearings?
We have no dilapidated structures this month and no National Register nominations. We have 4 items on the consent docket. So the commission can pull an item or ask questions if you have any about any of those items, or we can take one motion to approve all of them as recommended by staff.
Okay. Do we have commissioners that have any items that need to be pulled or reviewed? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Farzani,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Yay.
Commissioner Remy. Motion passes.
Excellent. That motion carries unanimously as well. If you're on the consent docket, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting, or you can head out now if you'd like. Let's see, we will move on to the items, the cases for individual consideration with the continuance of the first. We have 5 remaining. Did we want to move any of these?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd request to move an item to the top, so I will make a motion to move item 4 HPCA HPCA 21-00169 to the top of the cases for individual consideration.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor? Please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Farzani,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Yay.
Commissioner Remy. Motion passes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. The reason for that movement on that particular item, I believe, is Katie is very familiar with this particular project, and I think you have to step out today.
Yeah. I may have to leave before we get to the end, so once
Okay.
I appreciate you all moving that up.
Excellent.
So we can get to it.
Is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. My name is Colin Fleck. I'm with Bacchus Payne Architects. My address is 2228 Northwest 45th Street in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the commission for this particular application?
I actually didn't introduce this
Oh.
one, if you want me to, sorry.
Yes, that would be
We
great.
skipped over that. This is HPCA 21-00169 at 2609 North Martin Luther King Avenue. This is an individually designated historic landmark, the Freedom Center in Ward 7. And we are, this is consideration and possible action on an application by Colin Fleck for Leonard Benton Freedom Center, Inc., for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove all paving and landscape material elective, 2, relocate existing monument elective, 3, install new sidewalks elective, 4, install new paving, including parking and event space elective, 5, construct planters and seating elective, 6, install landscaping elective, 7, install bicycle racks elective, 8, replace all brick veneer on structure, 9, replace roof and install concealed gutter, 10, install glazed tile on east side of structure, 11, replace windows, 12, replace doors, 13, reinstall stone memorial on south end of structure, 14, install skylights on west slope of the roof, 15, install new windows on the west side of the structure, 16, install new doors on west side of structure, 17, install new board and batten siding and gable ends, 18, install LED strip lighting, 19, place HVAC unit, and 20, refurbish sign on east side of structure. So this is the property is a MAPS 4 project, but they're doing this piece of it separate from the MAPS 4 process with private funds, and it is a total renovation of the building. This was presented to the commission in October as an informational presentation with discussion focusing primarily on the decision whether or not to put the brick veneer back on the concrete block structure. Staff has recommended approval with conditions on a couple of the items, mostly related to retaining the concrete block on the west facade of the building, which was never covered with brick historically. And then regarding the landscaping and lighting proposal that staff felt might be a little out of character with the site and with the structure.
Perfect, thank you. So for the applicant, thank you guys. Obviously, this is a great project and we're thrilled to see it. What are your thoughts and what are your comments on staff's recommendations in terms of potentially moderating the landscape elements and potentially keeping some of the brick on the back of the, was it the brick or the stone? Or keeping the brick off of the back of the building?
Yeah, so I think where we stand is we don't see the back of the building as a particularly notable side of the building, since it's the back side. As Katie may have mentioned, we are insulating and weatherproofing the entirety of the building. So regardless of what we do, there's going to be a masonry veneer on the back side of the building. Whether or not it's brick or concrete block, we'll go whichever way you guys recommend. But our preference is to go with the brick. We think that it provides a better structural stability on the back, not having to change the materials. You know, how would we tooth the new CMU veneer into the brick? That's where we would start. What's the easiest thing to do? Well, the easiest thing is just to wrap the brick all the way around. So that's where we stand with it. But like I said, we're open to changing that up. It's not a hill we want to die on for this project.
Okay.
As regard to the landscaping, we're open to that as well. If we think that it needs to be dialed back, then we can do that as well. We're trying to create more of a people place here, where previously wasn't. And so that's something in the modern iteration that we want to bring to this, is to make it bright and inviting. We think that they're going to have a lot of events outside. And so while it might be not necessarily in keeping with the historic nature of the site, we think that it's going to improve it and create those people places. And it's the start of what will be coming from the Maps 4 project. And so we had to project forward a little bit and then work backwards to kind of decide where we wanted to land with the direction of the site plan. And so I'd say that's our stance on it. But we're open. We see this as a dialogue, and
Sure.
We want to be in good standing with you all, of course.
Sorry, there's lots to go through on the plans. We have any other questions?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Could you describe the impact on the any existing materials or materials that we would consider historic? That would be my questions in regards to like the concrete block and so forth, because I know on more humble buildings in historic preservation, I think it's always a challenge to restore what's there versus make it look better. And to me, what one goal, or the historic preservation goal, is to actually retain the feeling that was there originally, and to be able to, touch or whatever the original materials. And the more materials that you cover up or delete from the project, then really you're lessening the historic property. Like I say, with a humble building, it's a challenge because sometimes there's parts of the building that we don't think are that attractive. But according to our guidelines, it would be difficult to cover any existing materials that were a part of the original building. So other than the concrete wall, are there other materials that in the end are not going to be original? Are you removing any materials from the exterior of the building?
So the actual plan for this building will basically be a new building around the old structure.
Then how? Okay.
I know, that's a funny thing to say. The
What-
concrete block is all that's really going to remain.
Right. So then is it actually, how is it a landmark under our guidelines if the building that we have today that's representative of the well, really it's the events that occurred, if it's gone, then it's not really a landmark anymore unless the original is there
The original will still be there.
under something else, you're saying.
Can I jump in just with a question? From what I read throughout this file, my understanding is that the historical significance that qualifies this building to be recognized today occurred when it was mostly brick. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, so is the idea that the concrete blocks don't need to be retained because of that?
I would say that that's a good reasoning behind it. We also, if you look at the photos of the back of the building, it's a grass lot that was never used for, people weren't back there. It's not doesn't have any real significance historically to it. Now, you might see that differently. We are trying to actually make the backside of that building more significant. We're trying to give them a place for an education court, to have small, classroom-style gatherings out there, small garden. And so we'd like it to be more significant. Mm-hmm. It never was previously. When it was a filling station, the mobile filling station, that's when it was all block. But there's nothing significant or historic about that. It's when the building was purchased by Ms. Looper and turned into the Freedom Center, and she began to clad it in brick and make all of these improvements to the building. And as we debated which era it should be restored to, we landed on that the culmination of her work, of her life's work, was representative in the current condition that it was in circa 2011-ish, which was brown brick on 3 sides of the building. Pitched roof, and as dilapidated as it was, The reason that the brick's no longer there is that it was literally falling off the building.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding the timeline and what we were referencing as historically significant.
Gotcha. And the same is to be said for the roof. That's the only other real feature that we're going to be discussing, I think, is that the structure of the roof is collapsing in on itself as well. So it needs to be removed to be remediated with a brand new roof. It's going to look exactly the same, in our opinion. We're going to attempt to make it look exactly the same. And so, you know, that siding and the gables there, you know, we don't really have great documentation of what was there. It's just plywood. And so I would ask, should we go back with plywood, or what we're proposing is a board and batten siding, which is about as close as we think that we would get. Same in color, you know,
Right.
for modern
I
times.
understand where you're going. I'm just saying that using our guidelines, we would say, let's just take, for instance, the plywood, that if you have documentation that shows it's something else, then that would be one direction to go. So, you know, is there documentation of, do you have a lot of photographs of the building? And
We've got lots of photographs like this, where someone might be standing out in front of the building. We don't have very many photos, if any, really, of the sides or the back. Aside from 2018 to 2019 is about the range that we've got photographs of those areas. But at that point, the siding in the gables is falling off as well. I mean, today it's got several panels that have already fallen off just from the elements, basically.
are you, so explain again, are you removing the existing brick?
It's gone already.
It's gone,
And we're going back with new brick.
new brick. Will the same window openings and door openings be there?
On the east side, yes. We are proposing that new openings be added to the west side.
Okay.
And that's the back side of the building, where from the street you wouldn't be able to see it.
Well, just like I said, I think it's, humble buildings are a difficult preservation project, but I feel like that, I don't feel like that all of the things that you're going to do would fall under our guidelines. Those are my comments.
I think the concern for me is it feels like there's not going to be much left of the historic structure that is there currently. And I guess from a historic preservation perspective, that part is disappointing. And are there areas that we might be able to keep or retain some of the historic elements of that? And that's why I think we're suggesting that back wall, so that you can still have the pretty structure that you want to have, and have it be a symbol of what you want it to be, but with some historic nature left in it too.
Yeah, understandable. And look, I would agree with you. It's I've used the term ship of Theseus before, right? If you've
Say
got
that again?
a ship of Theseus, it's an old thought exercise of, if you've got an old wooden ship and you replace every part on that ship, is it still the same ship, right? I don't know. This building, all we really have are the concrete block walls on the inside. People, most of what happened there was happening on the inside. People have memories. They have memories of the outside as well, but with the brick in the condition that it was in, where it's literally falling off the building, we couldn't save it. What's really left of the outside? And so what we said was, we're going to do everything we can to retain that concrete block on the inside and expose it as it is today, and make the outside look as close to the original as we can. And when we go through all of the processes of construction and trying to waterproof it and insulate it, because it has none now, how do we accomplish that? And so our resolution was to build new footings with an actual brick ledge, because there was none before, or brick ties. And so we've got a brick ledge and brick ties and an airspace to vent the backside of the masonry veneer, insulation and weatherproofing, because we want this building to stand up and be there for another 100 years, right? And so
let me
that's
ask
our
you this.
goal.
So our intent is that, you know, let's say that you see this as an Oklahoma City landmark, and you're very interested in civil rights, and you think this is going to be a great place to come and you're going to see a place where the events in your tourism information say happened there, do you feel like that people driving up to that building are going to get that feeling, or are they going to get the feeling that, it really doesn't look like it did before, does it? So that would be my disappointment. I'm just, in looking at how other people see it. I mean, I see you are on the practical side. I understand all of that. But if it's a landmark building, when it gets to us, I mean, we're saying we're in charge of the visual part of it, what we actually see. And so how can we, how's that going to be interpreted to visitors if they're looking for something that when they walk up, they're going to feel that experience?
Sure, and I agree with you. I want that too. And I think that on three sides, it's going to look exactly like it does today, but better. Like it's going to look like it got,
See, but the
facial,
but
right?
better, the but better is the part that's bothering me, because
I'm sorry, I should clarify, but better because it's not falling off.
okay.
Because it's literally falling down in front of us.
Can I just ask a couple of questions that I think I understand the project pretty fully, and I just want to make sure everybody's seeing it holistically. This building is currently owned by the Freedom Center, correct?
That's correct.
And they have raised these funds privately because this used to be a MAPS project.
That's correct.
And now this will be, for lack of a better term, complementary of the MAPS project that will be the museum that will be Caddy Corner? Is that right? Or across the street?
Down the street, south.
Down the street. Okay. So this will be used, as you said, like hopefully just a gathering space, right?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of see it as an artifact of sorts.
Okay.
And it's the place where everything happened. The reason of the movement in Oklahoma City, right? Or at least the headquarters of that.
But you think, from looking through it, it to me feels like aside from the monuments and the pavement, I'm with you that I think it will, for all intents and purposes, look the same, but structurally sound. So
That's the goal.
okay.
Yeah.
And the brick, it's all comparable to what is there and as close a match as possible.
That is the closest match that we could find. We do have some of the original brick, but not nearly enough to cover. First of all, we don't have enough to cover three sides, much less four, if we were to try and do that. The northeast corner was, like I said, that's where we saw the most damage to it prior to it being removed. And it was a portion of that corner had actually fallen off, and we had caution tape roped around it so that people wouldn't walk around the building, because obviously we don't want anybody to get hurt. And so several of the bricks have diagonal cuts through it, splits. It's just, there's the pile right there on the right. You can see that's about what is remaining.
What is the significance of the murals? When were they put on the walls, all of that stuff too?
The painted murals?
Yes.
So we don't have any historic documentation of those. No one knew they were even there until we removed the brick. And then in the couple of months after they were uncovered, which was November of last year, so about a year ago, they have severely dilapidated since then. You can see there the paint literally peeling off the middle image. And we have photographed it. We think that it's a story that is told there in some sort of gallery exhibit. But again, going back to how do we practically keep this building standing up while waterproofing and insulating it, we would have to cover it up or do some sort of blindside, waterproofing. And then it's such a small building, you're starting to take away from the inside of the building, which is where we think the significance lies.
Well, staff has recommended approval on this particular project. I think I would probably lean towards an approval on this project as well. I am sad to see all of the historic elements of the building, be covered up, but I think the spirit and the intent of the project is in the right place and something we need. So I think that's where I would lean. Probably need a vote on this particular project, though, or a motion.
We did have,
Unless- sorry,
well,
yeah.
we did have, staff did have comments and recommended conditions related to the concrete wall in the back. So we may want to pin down exactly what the direction is on that. I know the applicant has talked about continuing the new cladding or veneer across, and that could be concrete block instead of brick across the back. That's different from leaving the existing concrete block exposed. So I think that's something for the commission to determine what the appropriate path is there. And then the other primary concern that staff noted in the staff report was whether or not all of the proposed kind of landscaping site improvements were appropriate and compatible with the building. There's some materials that are being introduced that are currently not present and are maybe a little more, I don't know, formal in character than the structure, the stone benches and the lighting and some of those things. Obviously, this was a gas station historically, and I think the applicant's intent is to make it much more of an approachable and public-friendly, welcoming site than what you see now with the concrete. But staff was concerned that it might not be as consistent with just the character of the property and telling the story of how it has evolved over time as it could be.
Okay. Do we have concerns, challenges, issues with the landscaping elements and things of that nature that are being used in this particular project?
Are there any sort of historical elements as related to like the gas station or incorporated into the landscaping or anything like that?
No, we just don't feel that in its gas station form that it has any historic significance to the story of the building and what we determined to be again, that culmination of Ms. Luper's life work.
I would just say, I continue to disagree. I think that the interpretation is misleading.
But the what?
The interpretation of the site and the building is misleading as a landmark. And on the I agree with staff on the setting that it just seems, the theme of the whole thing, which is a real theme, not a story or anything, it just seems like that it could be just less, like I said, less formal. I don't have a design idea for you. It just seems like it's like this perfect little park with now this fixed up perfect building that represents a situation that was not really perfect or in a pretty setting. And so to me, it just still, the interpretation of the site, while it doesn't have to be, I'm not suggesting that it's, I'm just suggesting that what you have, it just seems like that there'd be better ways to preserve and interpret the site. And when you say, well, it wasn't a gas station, I mean, all of that's there today, you walk up there and you're like, it happened here. And when you all are finished, it's going to be, it did not happen here because there's nothing left of what was there when things happened. That's, just like we rule for people's yards and so forth under our guidelines. So, I mean, that's the part that I think is really, it's misleading to people that would come to the building.
I'll just note, because we have quite a few commission members that were not on the commission when this was designated as a landmark a few years ago, that the property was built as a mobile oil gas filling station and was acquired by Freedom Center, Clara Luper, to become, it was no longer, it was vacant. They worked with Mobile Oil to lease the property and ultimately to purchase it and, made repairs to it over time. There were Freedom Centers in many cities, but often they functioned out of somebody's home, is what I've learned when I've researched these previously. And so the fact that they were able to obtain an actual building and make that their headquarters was significant. When the property was attacked and burned, they worked with Mobile Oil to, I believe, have it reappraised and to change the assessment of the value of the property. We found a historic article from a Mobile Oil publication where they were announcing and celebrating ceremonially burning the mortgage with Freedom Center, that it had, was now officially their property, and they owned it free and clear. And so I concur with Commissioner Meacham's comments. I think that the history of the evolution of the property from a filling station to the Freedom Center is greatly significant and is an incredibly important part of why this property is historic and an important part of telling the story of the Freedom Center and what they were able to achieve during the civil rights era. And so I think that is where staff's concern comes from, with changes that both on the structure and on the site remove evidence of that evolution through time. Should things be made to make it more functional and to make it usable for the use that is intended? Absolutely. But I think there's also a balance to be struck with retaining that evidence of how the property has evolved through time and where it came from and the story that has occurred.
And could that story be told, again, through an exhibit inside? And because really the only evidence that it was ever a filling station that's there present now would be, well, I don't know that there is evidence. You might say that the backside of the concrete block is that evidence, but look at the backside of that building and tell me that it was a filling station, and I would argue with you, right? Like, and it's just a blank concrete block wall, and when you put brick on three sides, the evidence is already gone, I think.
I mean, that's, evidence includes documentation, and so it doesn't have to still be there to know it was there if there's photographs and information, so.
Sure, and we would like to present that as part of the history of the space, but just on the inside.
I'd say, our mission again is not to do that, is to make sure that the actual building tells a story. That's where I feel like that there's going to be a loss of that story potentially.
And do you mean specifically the story of the filling station?
No, well, of what happened there. By the time you get finished, people are not, I don't think it's going to look like a historic building. It's going to look like a brand new building with brick and painted eaves and everything. It's just, it's going to be, and it never looked like that. It was never, that I can tell, it wasn't like a brand spanking new building that looked great and had landscaping around it and everything, and now it's deteriorated and we're going to bring it back to what it was before. Like I said, it's always a challenge when you have a humble situation in historic preservation, and there is a, it's in our nature, and particularly in designers and architects, to make it, better, and better is not ever our intention. That's just not part of historic preservation. It's to interpret what was originally there.
Yeah, and I respect that, and I'm not trying to come in and make it the building look radically different, better, trying to structurally better it, right?
I mean, I understand that part.
I've been listening to arguments, and it's interesting. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach historic preservation and what it means to preserve a structure, or to, in this case, for me, I think there's several items, but one, the brick is gone, the roof is in horrible condition. And what's interesting to me as part of the story is the evolution of the building. Everyone's been talking about this. It was burned, it was rebuilt. The vision for it, there was a period where it had all the brick and it was in presumably a lot better condition than it is now. And in some ways, we do want to preserve a building, which means it needs to be watertight, airtight. It needs to be, in a good condition to preserve it in a sense. And I feel like this is almost like another page in the story of the Freedom Center. It feels like to me, it's been rebuilt so many times, altered. I don't think this is necessarily disingenuous to the story or the evolution of the Freedom Center. To me, I think you've worked hard to preserve the spirit of the building. I think the materials, the openings, 90% of that is preserved. And there are just a few things that maybe are altered a little bit, and it seems more of a celebration in a sense. And I feel like, to me, I don't really have an issue with your proposal, because I feel like I see your vision, the vision that you all have for it, and to me, it's just another page in the story of the Freedom Center, so I guess that's how I view it. I know that there are different approaches to historic preservation. I think it's kind of tough to say we're gonna pick this exact time period to preserve it when it's gone through so many evolutions. How do you say, do we restore back to a gas station? That doesn't make sense. Do we restore it back to when half of it was brick, half of it was, at what point, what time period do you pick to preserve it to? To me, I think you've preserved the spirit of the building. I think it's another page in the story of the Freedom Center. What you're proposing will make sure that it won't become more dilapidated. It'll be a sound structure, So I think those are my opinion on it.
I totally agree with you, except we are here with guidelines in front of us.
Sure,
And
but
so
they're
how
guidelines.
do we
Right.
reconcile that and not say to other projects? I mean, we've had many projects come before us and they say, it's going to be better, we want to use this, it lasts longer, we don't want to do wood, we want to do, and we say, no, 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 because we have guidelines in front of us. So, there's a difference here. I totally agree. If it was theirs and they, could do whatever, I don't care. That sounds like a great idea. It's not any, they should be able to do what they want. But we're here with guidelines, so what do we do?
I agree, but they're guidelines, and we have a commission here, and I feel like as a commission, it's our charge to interpret the guidelines on a case-by-case basis. So I feel like, personally for me, I don't feel like I'm being disingenuous to the guidelines necessarily. I'm just interpreting them on a case-by-case basis, and in this particular case, the roof is falling down, the brick has already been torn down.
I know all, I understand all of that. That's,
Yeah, I guess that's my approach or my
that's
view.
fine.
Yeah.
I think I love the idea of, recommending keeping the block wall on the back of the property. I think I understand the pitch about the guidelines and all of that. I think it's quite a bit different because this is a very unique situation. I don't personally feel, the Freedom Center owns this building. It was their vision. This is a manifestation of someone's dream and someone's vision for this. This is, honestly, I've visited a lot of these civil rights monuments and buildings, and this is a very standard situation where they've modernized the surroundings and the landscapes because they do want it to be appealing to visitors and tourists and historians. And if it's not appealing, people aren't going to go as often or attract as many visitors as they would. I also just feel that as it is still owned by the Freedom Center, I don't feel that it is, while it is within our designation, I don't feel that it's necessarily appropriate for us to choose how they tell the story of the property. So those are just my 2 cents. I do love the recommendation of keeping the block wall, but otherwise I see it as the Freedom Center.
Okay. I think that part of the challenge to Commissioner Meacham's point earlier is it is a very humble building. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. And I do think sprucing up the landscaping does help, to Commissioner Jordan's point, bring people to the space, which obviously we want some more awareness there. Are you guys opposed to keeping the back wall as a cinder block wall to retain some historic elements? Would you be willing to do that?
Would you want to speak to that, Leonard, at all? Or would you like me to?
I don't have any particular.
Yeah. We've discussed it. And like I said at the beginning, this is not a hill that we feel like we would die on for this project. We do agree that it is, for all intents and purposes, the historic nature of the era that we chose to restore it to. Yeah, it's white block right now. So I guess my next question would be, adding openings to that block wall is not historic either. Are you opposed to that? And so I just want to know how far this goes, right?
Sure.
Like, because we're trying to improve the function of the building as well.
Are there proposals to have the openings in the wall right now, or is that in the proposal?
There's, the application proposes installing windows and doors in the rear, or I think a door and 2 windows in the west facade, which our guidelines do allow for new openings on rear and even the rear portion of side elevations. Staff felt like that was something that was easily distinguishable as a modern feature introduced to the building, whereas just wrapping the building in the same brick all the way around was a little bit more disguising the character, and that the average person wouldn't know that it hadn't just always been like that.
So to that end, I would not have any issues with doors and windows on the back of the building.
No, I don't. As much as we'd like to see the brick just for ease of construction and things like that, we would be open to going to a block veneer there. We would need to get into some of the details of how we do that, because the brick was literally just set up against the block.
Sure.
So it'll look slightly different, but it would generally look the same.
I think to me that seems to appease all sides.
Okay.
I, again, would be in favor of approval with specific circumstances. We need to
So
check with
would-
citizens first, too.
Oh, yeah.
We've been at this a while. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Any other comments from staff? Angela, did you raise your hand? No? Okay, good. Excellent.
Let me just check make sure we captured everything in that's in the recommendation, so you all can make a motion that either includes or does not include what staff recommended. Hold on. Staff recommended approval of items of removal of the paving, relocation of the existing stone monument, installation of sidewalks, installation of new paving, constructing planters and seating, installing landscaping, installing bicycle racks, and installing the LED strip lighting with conditions addressing, sorry, I didn't make it all the way down to the bottom. So something we didn't really fully discuss is there is a proposal to put LED lighting at grade surrounding the perimeter of the building. And staff had recommended that that lighting specifically may be out of character with the historic property, that something a little more traditional, a little more modest might be more appropriate. And so the condition on that one was simply that any changes to products or materials as directed by the commission be submitted to staff. So if the commission is fine with all of those features as proposed, then you could approve and simply strike that condition, or we could further discuss if that's something that needs to be modified. And those concerns were mainly that lighting that was proposed, and then whether the materials proposed for the benches, landscape beds were really compatible with the site and the structure.
Do we have concerns with lighting and landscape elements? Any comments, questions?
So the one condition that you proposed is to maintain the CMU facade on the west facade, correct? Is that,
So it's at the west.
and you are, that's okay with you? You accept that condition? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Meacham, does that help?
I just want to make sure if you're going to make a motion that they make sure that all their specific findings and conditions are correct.
It's going to be a hefty motion.
Well, I think the specific findings are all correct. I was trying to look through them just now. I think the only thing is the conditions, but even the conditions apply because just that any changes to materials be submitted to staff, and we'll add the condition for the CMU wall. So I think that should apply unless I'm mistaken on that. Anyone else have any?
I have one question at this point. We keep saying the words maintain the rear concrete wall.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any intention whatsoever, if it's approved with maintain the rear concrete wall, of putting some sort of overlay on that wall? So that
Yeah.
the existing historic concrete block will no longer be visible. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay.
It would be a new veneer concrete block wall, painted white. Thanks for the clarification. It's
Man,
important.
I'm really sorry. I don't want to muddy the waters with this at all, but to me, it's almost like if you're going to put a new veneer on the back, over that CMU, then I guess in my opinion, it might as well be the brick too. I feel like if there's a way to, I know you're insulating it, and that's the main reason for that. There's a way to maintain that existing CMU wall on the back, and it's the actual, the actual building. That would be my preference, because otherwise, I don't know what the point would be. I do know that on the inside, it seems like you're not going to add any kind of finish on the inside, correct? It'll be the original CMU wall. So I do appreciate that, because you'll walk in and see the original building, as it was for years. Yeah, sorry to muddy the waters, but I feel like if you're gonna put some other cladding over that existing, I would rather make a motion to keep that specific CMU exposed if we're gonna do that, or if not, and we're okay with that, I would just say continue the brick around, But I know that muddies the waters, so I apologize for that, but I think Angela, that was a good distinction
good, yeah.
to make.
Well, that's the kind of thing that changes how you change your structural design, if you do that. So I think if I'm reading your section correctly, you're framing walls on both sides on new foundations. So the existing CMU block is no longer the load-bearing element.
Correct. You've read that correctly.
So in that case, so you're gonna have to cover it up regardless
Correct.
to achieve a structural, integrity of the building, is that correct?
Structural, weatherproofing, insulation.
Okay, so in that case, I don't think it makes sense to put a CMU, a new CMU wall over an old CMU wall, the reference to old CMU wall. In that case, I think it just makes sense to do the whole thing brick, and.
Yeah, I think you can, no matter what you're doing, you're coming back with some faux nod to whatever it is you want to represent. So I think it's difficult because in order to make that decision, we're sort of sitting in the role of being narrators. So I don't know that I'm personally comfortable with narrating the story to say what that back facade should be or shouldn't be. I mean, is there a narrative that, for cost reasons, they only wanted to veneer 3 sides because that was an extra X amount of dollars more and that wasn't affordable at the time? Or is that important to the story? I don't know the answer to that, and that's what makes it difficult for me to recommend one way or the other.
I think that the assumption is that was why, that it was a cost savings to not brick over the rear elevation. I haven't seen anything in writing, any documentation that suggests that, but that's what we've all just kind of assumed from looking at the building. That was a way to save money, which again, that's part of the story, and that's why we, don't let people replace the maybe lower quality product that their house was built with, or their building was built with, when they like to upgrade to a newer product. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I'll say. The brick was added sometime after 1992.
We've got a photograph up there that is from November of 1992, and it's prior to the brick actually being on there. And then the very next photograph we have after that has brick on it. And so I'll tell you when to stop. There. Sorry, go one more. That right there. What you're seeing in the background there are actually some sort of either ceramic or porcelain tile on the wall with donor names on it, and they're literally just stuck to the wall. And those are gone. They weren't there when we uncovered or pulled the brick back. And so we know that this is 1992, and then so we think it's 93, 94. We've got a receipt for some sand and mortar mix from Fox Building Supplies that we assume was for the masonry veneer. You can't read the date on it, so we believe that it was 93, 94-ish.
I agree with you that I don't think that we have the right to determine how they tell their story. So to me, I'm kind of looking at it like this is the completion of a project that was started and never finished. And if this is their vision for the project and how they want to tell the story of the evolution of the property, I would be in favor of it.
I definitely hear what you're saying, and that's kind of in the same vein as what Commissioner Remy's saying too, I think, and I agree. Sorry.
Hello, Christina Beatty. I'm project coordinator for the Freedom Center. One of the things that we have grappled with very thoughtfully in this whole process is that this really is phase one of the big thing that is still 5 years away, and that we absolutely want to treat this as the artifact, understanding that there will be beautiful new modern construction 2 blocks away, correct? Also thinking about the grand scheme of the campus, there is another filling station just next door that will also be a part of the design, and another opportunity to kind of keep some of that architectural character. I mean, that thing currently still has far more of the filling station infrastructure in front of it. And we intend to retain even the doors that raise on the front of that as we reinterpret that building as a cafe and welcome site, right? I started working with this project in April. And the board's intention was just very, very clear in terms of how they view the building and its significance. And it's, all of this debate is, we've had it. We've had it, we've had the debate. Internally as well. And so, our intention, even the conversation about the LED lighting around it, the intention really is to highlight that this is the artifact, this is the thing, this is the historic feature that we want to retain and restore, right? Like, I even get corrected. This is a restoration. This is not a renovation. We are restoring this to the greatest extent possible to the original, to the building that young people experienced it as, right? That the folks that we have spoke to that were members of the NAACP Youth Council, experienced this brick building, and the things that happen on the inside. And it's important that we keep the concrete block so that you can touch that inside, right? I have 2 pianos in there that we're trying to get restored, because the first thing people do is come in and sit down at those pianos, because that was the experience, right? Those were the experiences. And so we certainly want to, work with this body to make decisions that leave this building as a monument, as a landmark, as an artifact for people to interact with for many, many years to come. And that is precisely what we want and need it, how we need it to operate in the grand scheme of the larger campus that will be constructed.
Ma'am, did you sign your name on the sign-in sheet? And
Sorry, I
Colin,
can do that.
can you do the same too, please?
Yes.
Chairman, I would just add that if the guidelines are, if we're saying that it's an exception, then I would request perhaps that the person that does the motion give a unique circumstance for not adhering to the guidelines, or making it just a unique exception, consideration, or whatever.
And I would say that if that's the spirit and the intent is to maintain artifact, then a block veneer, some sort of expansion joint or joint sealant or something where those butt into each other, not tooth, would seem appropriate to me.
Okay, we've been at this for a while now. We probably need to get a motion, one way or another. Do we have anybody that wishes to brave that and make the motion?
I'll just, real quick, the conditions that are, if someone were to motion to approve with the findings and conditions and unique circumstances in the staff report, those conditions include submitting some additional details for windows and doors and skylight that staff can work on with the applicant. It includes a condition that changes to any products or materials as directed by the commission be submitted to staff prior to release of the CA. We haven't really asked for any of those changes, but that was related to the landscaping, but that condition could just remain, and there's nothing for them to really submit. And then the documentation of any revisions to the design or material specifications as directed by the commission be submitted to staff, and that would be specific to the, sounds like to the concrete block wall on the west elevation.
Can I ask one question? Sorry. I was just thinking a lot about the gas station and the site plan. To me, the only remnants of the gas station would be the paving, and then the existing monument is sitting where I'm assuming the pumps were. What was the design thought or the board discussion, kind of background information on the decision to pull that up and grass it and do Monument Plaza and so forth?
I'd say that we were trying to make the focus of the building, that open it up, open up the views, and also in the same move, make the monument more visible by putting it at the corner. That was the design thinking behind it. It provides for more of a gathering place out in front of the buildings. Right now, as you're driving south on MLK, because of the trees and the monuments and things like that, you really don't even see the monument out in front. It just, you fly right by it. And so pulling it out to the corner would make it more visible. And again, it would make that space out in front of the building more useful for large gatherings. They have the annual Freedom Fiesta in August, and so there's generally large groups of people outside for that. And you can see here, this is a good shot of all of the paving that's there now. Lots of patches, lots of deterioration, curb cuts. Not great for gathering. And so the site is, again, is it better because it's more structurally sound? That's where we start at least, is just trying to clean it up, add some relief with landscaping, put some greenery out there, provide places for people to sit, and that's the direction we went with it.
Ready? Okay. Let's hear a motion.
All right, I will make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00169 with the specific findings and conditions as noted in the staff report, with an additional condition to maintain a CMU veneer or CMU wall on the east wall. Is that correct?
West wall.
West wall, on the west wall of the building. And with unique circumstances related to this approval, that elements of the building had already been demolished and that they are in a dilapidated state, and that the building has gone through, and the second unique circumstance, that the building has been in a state of constant evolution, and that justifies this specific approach to the restoration. So that would be my motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raman Phillip, second by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Farzani,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Nay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore, Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, that motion passes 6-1.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to seeing the project. Okay, that 3 minutes lasts a little longer than we expected, so we'll move on to item number 2, HPCA 2100158 at 1530 Classen Drive.
This is in Heritage Hills Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architect for Joe Davis for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install pool elective, 2, install hot tub elective, 3, install new sidewalks and patios for pool, etc. elective, 4, install new artificial turf elective, 5, relocate, I think that's supposed to be ACs, air conditioners, elective, 6, relocate fence to 6 feet back from front wall of house elective, 7, install crushed granite, 8, install new concrete steps from hot tub at 2 feet high, 9, construct 6-foot tall fountain wall that continues as brick wall around back of the yard elective. Staff has recommended continuance on this because of several concerns, including the placement of the pool, the amount of impermeable surface to be installed in the yard, placement of the fence wall fountain feature and its visibility, and I think other things as noted in the staff report.
Okay. Talk to us about your project.
I'm sorry?
Talk to us about your project.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was my turn or what. Well, the staff report it's pretty wordy and seems like there's a lot of parts, but I want to make it like really clear. Really, the homeowner is just adding a pool, but given his unique circumstance of the orientation of his lot, he's at the end of the row of houses. He has the smallest lot on this street, so. You know, his thinking in placing this pool where he has, it's behind the original house, so it is in the backyard, but by the nature of, you know, how everything is currently laid out, this was the place that worked to put the pool. You know, pools are pretty common throughout the district. This is a modest pool. You know, if it were possible to locate it just behind the house, I think that we could certainly entertain that option, but that's not an option for the homeowner. I think Commissioner Meacham was the only commissioner that was still on the commission at the time we did the rear addition, and it's something we brought up in the meeting as well about this, because you know, even at that time we showed for a future pool in this same location, and we talked about the unique circumstances being that this lot has a very unique shape and size. And therefore, you know, we could approach the orientation of all these exterior elements through that lens. So again, you know, there's some statements in the staff report I want to just really quickly clear up on the artificial turf. There is no excavation that is necessary, and there is no water barrier. In fact, artificial turf is known to increase or benefit drainage. It has a gravel base, which allows for more permeable drainage. This is a fully permeable surface as well, so there is no obstruction for rainwater to absorb into the soil below. So I just wanted to make that really quick distinction. The other paving that exists is very minuscule. It's just around the pool, just basically gets you to and from the pool. And the reason that it's raised slightly at the hot tub is to match the elevation of the patio that was, again, approved by the commission a couple of years ago. So again, I'm happy to help with any of these issues brought up in the staff report and put your mind at ease, because truly it's a very modest pool, something again many homeowners enjoy throughout the district. That's all. The only reason that it couldn't be administratively approved is its location. So again, I would say our resolution, our reasoning behind that is strictly because of the unique circumstance of the orientation of the site.
So the orientation of the site, just to clarify, it was the current homeowner who did the CA for the existing concrete patio and covered patio, correct?
Correct. So
the orientation of the pool is dictated by his own coverage of the back of the house with his previous CA. I mean, it is a modest lot and a modest pool, but I have really big concerns about the amount of things going on to that lot.
You know, again, though, if it were a lot that was, you know, 150 foot deep and 75 foot wide, like so many of the homes in this district, this wouldn't seem like a lot. But again, because of the nature of the lot, it appears to be a lot. But this homeowner is just wanting to have the same things that everybody else has. He just has less space to do it in. So I think that's all we're saying. I do want to make it really clear as far as visibility. From the street, it's not always evident, but I would encourage you at any time to just drive by. The house is raised from the street level quite a bit. There's a hill that rolls up. It's all along Classen Drive. So, the home's elevation is at least 4 feet above the street elevation. So visibility there is already obscured just by the nature of the topography, which we aren't really changing other than digging a pool. Most of the topography remains as is. So our approach to mitigating that visibility is with screening, landscape screening, which we've proposed and is listed in the scope of work. I didn't see it, she makes mention in the staff report that screening is required. It's included in our packet. We've shown that as our intent to screen. So again, I don't think visibility is going to be any issue whatsoever once we've planted and done all the things that we've proposed.
Okay.
Holly, what about, you're saying it's not as big a lot, but so that's why we use percentages. And so staff has indicated that the result would be a 65% coverage when recommended coverage is 50%. I think that's probably the biggest concern. There's so much, and that all of this coverage is still going to add to the runoff and everything else.
Right. So again, as a way to mitigate all of that, that's another reason for that brick wall. We won't have runoff exiting our property onto our neighbors, but also, we're not changing the drainage. The drainage actually flows directly west alongside the building and to the street. Again, the street is lower quite a bit than where the house sits. So everything runs to the street. That won't be changed by the coverage. Again, the artificial turf, that's a way in which he can develop the site without offsetting the Earth's ability to absorb water. So he's done what he can to make it feasible. I will also say it's come to my attention that my site plan may not be completely accurate on the existing concrete coverage. The homeowner and I spoke this morning, and he sent me a picture, and where I show that fireplace and where it actually is, it's not exactly matching up. So even if we continue today, maybe I could come back. I understand the percentage issue, and if we can get it down to 50%, right at that number, and maintain 50% green space versus coverage, and the commission, if that's the issue, I think we can work backward to either remediating some of the existing paving in order to achieve the pool. If we need to meet that 50%, I think that's something we can achieve and bring back for your review.
So my thought is a pool is a luxury, not a necessity. I'm really concerned with the pool being right on the property line, and for me, that's a reason to continue or deny. That is a main concern for me. The artificial turf is not terribly concerning, but again, this is a pool. It's a luxury item. He doesn't need this to survive, and it's great that all the neighbors have a pool too, and he wants one. But I don't see that as I don't necessarily see a unique circumstance here that has a compelling argument for me to say yes, this is appropriate.
Okay, so I also did speak with Christopher Moses. He's a senior plan reviewer at the City of Oklahoma City Building Department about this issue being close to the property line. Okay, so there's that's a very basic zoning ordinance. That's just the base zoning for all residential, okay? So, but those zoning ordinances there's exceptions made to those every single day through a variance. I mean, we could easily achieve a pool right up to the property line, quite easily. Now, when I spoke with Christopher Moses, he made it clear to me that this body would serve just like the Planning Commission in this circumstance in order to grant exceptions to the zoning ordinance. In fact, you all as a body replace the zoning ordinance. Instead of R1, we follow the guidelines for this district. So Christopher Moses made it very clear to me that if you all found it appropriate, given the unique circumstances, it doesn't have a lot of room elsewhere, that they would absolutely back you up and follow that and accept that as the variance, the body granting this exception.
So I just want to clarify that this body does not have the ability to approve a variance. If it is a zoning regulation, it has to go to Board of Adjustment.
Correct.
For a variance.
Right,
So
not a variance.
sometimes we have some confusion between different departments about what, if HP has signed off on something, then it is fully blessed and nobody
Well,
else
in
needs
this
to look at it.
circumstance, I spoke
So
specifically.
I will confer with him just to make
Sure,
sure we're on the
please.
same page about what he's looking at and what we're looking at.
So
But
I sent him the
just
drawings
for our
and
new
everything.
commission members.
Sure.
Yeah,
I didn't mean that you would be doing a variance. I'm just saying that there are many ways in which we can work around the zoning ordinance in certain situations, given a certain hardship. This case, a very small lot is my client's hardship.
So I don't see a visibility issue. I think it's put in a fairly discrete location. I think the unique circumstance is the configuration of the built form that exists. I don't know that I would feel comfortable moving forward with recommending a variance, and I know that's a rabbit hole, but.
Not what I meant.
Okay, well.
That's not what you're
because-
doing, but.
Okay.
Right.
As long as, I think that's the issue that I'm getting flagged in the report, staff report, is meeting the setbacks. So in terms of, if it can comply with the base zoning requirements and the setbacks, I don't have a problem with the pool. I think that that's an amenity that if somebody wants in their yard, they should have the opportunity to do that within the constraints of zoning and the regulations.
So if I got a letter from Christopher Moses saying that something like that is a pretty generic, acceptable exception to the zoning ordinance, would that help?
So I think the appropriate thing, because we're talking city department to city department, is for staff to confirm with them what would be required. And we can also confirm with subdivision and zoning how they would interpret that.
That's
We can
wonderful.
report that back to the commission, what the rules are.
And that would be wonderful because, again, we've had an in-depth conversation about this particular project. And he said he didn't see any issue with putting the pool there, given the unique circumstances. This lot's really small. He sees it as modest. And it's not right on the property line. We're about, 1.4 off or so. So we're trying to do as best we can, situating a very modest pool in a very modest lot.
How does it sit in respect to the neighbor's property? Is there a house, driveway? I mean, what's right next door?
So on to the, I guess it would be the north, because it's a little unique because it's at an angle. It's not perfectly cardinal. But to the north, again, so basically, instead of having a neighbor to the north, he has the back side of the property on the opposite street, right? So he's backed up to the neighbor at the end of that street's like triangle-shaped yard as well. So it's backyard on all sides. There's no buildings near or anything like that. And again, the whole installation of a brick fencing, again, to provide privacy. I mean, the guidelines even encourage privacy such as this from neighbors' yards. So, and brick being a compatible material and an acceptable material, that was another way in which we could minimize any impact on neighbors.
Okay. That's helpful.
Just a clarification and make sure I'm on the right case. Is the case on the screen is not correct, right? We're the one before that?
21-118 was
Okay.
continued already, so we're on 21-158.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I just would have personally a really hard time moving forward with the project due to the percentages alone. Visibility aside, I understand the issue. I live in Mesta Park. I have a small lot myself. But the reality is I bought my home knowing that I had a small lot. And to echo Commissioner Fudge, I mean, a pool is a luxury. It's not even on par with a garage. I think the percentage issues were created by the homeowner, by their previous CAs, and I don't know that any sort of property line variance or anything aside, I just don't think I could ever personally go forward with it with the percentages as they are. Can
Can I pose a quick question then? Like I said earlier, if if we can meet that 50% coverage, would that change your
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a
ability?
whole different conversation because like what I'm looking at right now, and don't get me wrong, this looks lovely, but none of it is historically appropriate. And I know it is the back of the house and there's a lot more leniency there, but it just feels really congested for a historic
Okay.
property.
That's what I was going to have you clarify. In what ways is a pool not historically
Oh, no,
appropriate?
it's not that. I think just the coverage.
I see.
You know, there's a lot of
Congestion.
more modern elements going on here, modern in terms of what people are currently putting in their yards, not architecturally, but so current, maybe
I
a better
see.
word. But I don't think I could move forward with it with the percentages as they are. A pool is not entirely necessary. And even beyond that, I mean, we're not just talking about a pool, we're talking about a pool and a hot tub. So perhaps there's some.
Right.
I mean,
Sure. I think
It's hard to tell from the photographs, really, for me. But I mean, when you look at it, you've got a pool that's next to it looks like that there's not any grass.
Well, currently
mean-
there isn't because they've been preparing for construction.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at the drawing, and I
Oh,
mean, I'm just like, if there's grass there, I would put that in the drawing because I think if there
I
is
would.
grass there, that would lean towards, you know,
Right.
your side. Right now, it just looks like there's a pool next to a concrete patio, next to a garage with pool equipment, next to a covered patio, next to an existing concrete driveway. I mean, it doesn't look like there is any grass past almost the front of the house or behind
Yeah,
the gates.
right.
Is there grass back there?
Yes, there is. And in a previous photo, and this was something I hearkened to a moment ago about the location of that fireplace. So behind the fireplace, there is actually grass. But I show that fireplace right on the property line. And the reason is because I did not design this pool. It did not come through my office. But Joe approached me once it was clear to him administrative approval wasn't going to be possible. So, you know, I took the other pool contractor's drawings. And so there could be some fine tuning is my point. Let me get back there and verify exactly how much is covered and exactly how much grass is available. Redo those calculations. I think we can get to the 50% is what I'm trying to say.
I think probably there's still some concern about the pool being next,
In the side yard.
to the yard. I mean, Katie, does this have to do with accessory buildings or things that are built that are big? Is it just a wall? Is the wall then
Like a
the edge of the
fence.
pool?
Yeah, it's like a fence, just like a brick, 6-foot
And
brick
so the
fence.
wall goes up to the fence?
Well, instead of a fence, we're using the brick wall, but we
Right.
set it 6 inches off the property line. So on
So,
all
I mean,
sides.
is the fence almost equal to the water? I mean, that's it? That's the
Yeah, the
edge?
brick wall comes down and then there's pool.
The pool wall is the
But
fence.
On the backside, you got 6 inches to the property line, but we're not doing a double fence or anything. That
Right.
just is allowed to be, you know, and so again, that was our way of trying not to just be right on the property line. We're not going to have to
Well, how would you
excavate
keep-
anyone else's property.
How would you care for that 6 inches?
I'm sorry.
How would you care for the 6 inches?
Well, I think it would just become the neighbor's property. The client has spoken with his neighbors about this very thing, yeah. Because
There's not a
essentially,
fence
he
there
won't
now.
need, instead of having a fence, he'll just have this new brick wall. So they're gonna tear down the fence that's existing and just allow that to be open to the neighbors.
I think I read in the staff report, and maybe I'm getting my cases confused. Is a pool considered a structure? That's the issue, right?
And that's what I was asking Katie.
Yes, a pool is considered a structure, at least as we've confirmed with plan review and development services. A fence is a structure. Anything that's built, that's attached or anchored to the ground, in the ground, is considered a structure,
So
generally
is that an
speaking.
accessory structure, accessory building, or accessory?
Well, there's definitions for accessory structure, and there's tables in the code for accessory structures, including swimming pools. Swimming pools is part of that table.
Swimming pool is an accessory.
Yep.
That's a little bit my concern with the 5-foot separation is that it is considered a structure, you know, and there's this 5-yard, you know, I don't know why we would overrule that 5-foot side yard.
It's very permanent.
Right.
I mean,
so-
that's a really permanent
Right.
thing.
So Yeah, personally, I think I agree with the lot coverage. I think 50% lot coverage. I don't see why we would go over that necessarily for a non-essential feature, essentially, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with having it right up against the property line. So or overruling the kind of established norm.
It just seems like there's enough, and I apologize before for being on the wrong case. I'm not seeing the site constraints being so tight that these requirements can't be achieved. I think that's my issue.
Yeah, I think we
there's
can
space
achieve
for it.
50% coverage, and all of that. I mean, I think the brick fence is allowed for in the guidelines. I mean, a 6-foot brick fence is totally allowed for. So then it's the coverage that we need to get down. But one thing I wanted to point out is the original pool contractor's site plan. Below it has a section that shows the foundation and how it relates to the property line. So I would direct you all to that if you felt like maybe this being right next to the property line is somehow invasive to the other properties. We are well within our property line, even in excavation. And once the foundation is poured for the pool, it'll be covered up, and we're off of that property line enough, even with the footing that will be needed for the pool.
So it sounds like a continuance is absolutely necessary on this particular case. Are you
Fine with
And
that?
just
Yeah.
to,
I think
just
we
to
can bring some things
clarify,
back.
I'm not interpreting the issue being the wall. I think you can make an argument that that is a fence. To me, it's the there are other zones like neighborhood conservation that has a 0 side setback as long as you're 10 feet off adjacent structure. That's not this zoning. So I think the issue for me is not the wall. The wall can stay where it is. It's the structure of the pool meeting the side setback, I think, is the issue.
So we can continue to either the January 5th meeting or to the February 2nd meeting. And I will just warn you that with not one but 2 holidays between now and January, we will have no wiggle room for back and forth on
I understand,
additional
but
documentation.
I'll take January.
Love it.
I love
Okay.
a challenge.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, but I just want to comment before is what I've heard the commissioner say is that the wall might be okay, that the structure maybe has a side yard issue or setback issue, and that the percentage needs to be 50% or less.
Agreed. Thank you for that.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 21-00158 to the January 5th.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Wyman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Frazani,
Yay. And unfortunately, I have to leave at 3:30 if that works with the quorum.
Okay. Does that work for our quorum? With Klaus having to step out for?
Yeah, we have 8.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Yay.
Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, that motion was carried unanimously. We'll continue this to the January 5th meeting. Thank you. Okay, let's see, moving on to HPCA 21-00162 at 212 Northwest 18th Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Mark Levine for certificate of appropriateness to install solar panels elective. The staff report recommends continuance of this application based on the fact that the criteria say solar panels should not be visible from the street. Panels are proposed on side slopes of the roof and appear to be potentially visible from the public right-of-way. You also have comments from the neighborhood that concurred with the staff report recommendation.
Is the applicant present today? Negative. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project?
Randy Ice, Heritage Hills. You have written comments from us on all of our cases, as always. We are persistent, and we are opposed to this. These panels can be seen from the north-south streets. It's very clear they can be seen. We don't have any solar panels in Heritage Hills because of the two-story houses. Most of them can be seen from the north-south streets. It is very difficult to comply with the ordinance and put in solar panels on these homes. And so we are in general opposed to them because we don't think they're historically correct. And we don't even recommend a continuance. We recommend a denial with prejudice.
Perfect, thank you.
And I'll say, we've had a couple solar panel cases come up. If it weren't for the lack of attendance, I would also agree with denying just to save the client the time and money, because I don't see it getting approved.
Sure.
But since they're not here, I would be okay with the continuance personally, but I agree with staff recommendation and the neighborhood.
I agree as well.
I would probably go so far as to recommend the denial. The fact that they're not here to me speaks volumes. I think if it's important, you show up. I don't think, personally, there's nothing in the guidelines to support this. It feels like a really easy decision for this particular body. I hate denying it, but it is what it is.
Staff will just note that they could come back with a revision to the proposed placement of the solar panels. If there's, I don't know if there are other options for them on their site where they could consider installing them. They could consider a ground-mounted installation. So staff would.
Have you worked with the person?
Angela has worked with this applicant.
Angela?
So
Do you have
just
any
in the
comments?
interest of not making them submit a new application and pay a new application fee, in case they do have some alternatives in their back pocket that they would be willing to propose to the commission, staff would be supportive of a continuance. So I don't think we've heard from them. I don't know why they're not here, or if they intended to be here. But
Yeah, I would support a continuance just because maybe there is some ways. It is, I don't know. Most of the solar panels face away from the street. I know that some of them are visible. Maybe there's a way they could compromise. And I would suggest one continuance just so they have a chance to come back. If who knows what happened today. No skin off our back.
I can support that too.
Should we do February or?
February 2nd.
Probably so. All right, I'll make a motion to move HPCA 21-00158 to the February 7th HP hearing.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge?
Yes.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham?
Yay.
Commissioner Milner?
Yay.
Commissioner Poore?
Aye.
Commissioner Remy?
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, motion carried unanimously. Move that to the February 2nd meeting. Moving on to item number 5, HPCA 21-00170 at 1720 North Chartel Avenue, and I believe you need to recuse yourself.
Yep, I'll be recusing myself for this one.
Okay.
I will be doing so.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by David Box, Williams Box, Forshee and Bullard, PC, for Nathan Cow, Omega Investments, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove concrete steps on east side of the west side building elective. This is, if you haven't looked at this one closely, it's a kind of complicated site with multiple structures. So to 2, remove step between buildings elective. 3, replace entryway at 716, 718 Northwest 17th with new doors and side lights elective. 4, remove awning elective. 5, install metal panel header with address and lighting elective. 6, construct 2-story building elective. 7, install dumpster and screening and patio walls elective. And 8, install signage elective. Staff did recommend approval of this application with some conditions related to ensuring that lighting is directed downward and that we have all the adequate specifications for lighting and signage.
Okay.
We did get comments from the neighborhood that concurred with the staff recommendation, and we have not heard from any other parties on this case.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, as staff said, this is the second time you guys have seen this particular tract. We had the oddity in that it was a legally non-conforming use, even though the office use had been there prior to the existence of the HP ordinance. So we went through the HP Commission, then we went to Planning Commission, ultimately culminated with a City Council hearing. on the SPUD, which was approved. As we said in the SPUD, we did make sure that we allowed the HP Commission to retain all jurisdiction for any CA on any new construction, so that's why we're now back. The back, I don't know if you can display the site plan. Behind the buildings, there's a large expansive parking lot. So what we're proposing is a two-story building in that space, so we're not increasing the amount of developable land. We're just replacing what is a nasty parking lot with what we believe to be a complementary building. The building is complementary but yet distinctive from the existing buildings, which staff notes in their staff report. There are a few conditions throughout the staff report, all of which we do agree with. So be happy to answer any questions. We'd ask for your approval.
I have questions about the parking situation since you are building on the existing parking lot and
Yes.
it is a residential neighborhood.
So there is parking still along the frontage and along, I think there's some along Chartel. So we're not touching any of that parking. We still think we have adequate parking to meet it. We don't need any variances from parking, so whatever the code is requiring for this, we will meet the code.
Is the existing parking typically near capacity without this building being added to the property?
I don't believe so. I live in Heritage Hills, and I drop my kids off at school at Westminster and take Chartel back every single morning. And I've never, the picture you see here is fairly typical. I've never noted it to be at capacity. If you look, you've got parking along 17th Street, as well as that parking lot right there. So the parking lot you see there is not the only parking. We also have that parking along Chartel.
Yeah, I'm with you. I pass this property, more than 3 or 4 times a day. I don't know what the answer for this is, but I just want to express that I feel really personally conflicted because it's actually this section of Mesta Park that was responsible for it first becoming an urban conservation district and later an HP because they did come in and bulldoze a bunch of homes to build flat roof group of condos. And I realize the proposal is what it is, but I feel conflicted about not trying to get back to a better place with that whole group of properties in general. So just my 2 cents for whomever owns the property, that it would be, I think, in the best interest of the neighborhood and the property as a whole for it to go a little bit more of a historical direction in general.
Well, so to that end, that's why we, came through with the SPUD. The buildings you see all predate the adoption of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. So there were office buildings there, at the time that the city enacted. I think they were built in approximately 1962. So perhaps, that was part of it. But, at this point, I think it's, far along the process. Over 50 years. It is worth noting that directly across the street to the north, again, as you're well aware, is more office. The neighbors to the south have a benefit in that there's a developed alley there, so we don't butt up to residential properties to our south. We have an alley that's a functional alley to our south to provide from an additional buffer from what you see in our site plan. So we tried our best to be as complementary to the neighborhood, and specifically this little, it's a strange little intersection there. We've got non-residential on both the north and the south, but in terms of the guidelines in the SPUD, it is compatible and in conformance with those documents.
And what is the rationale between with the change in the brick color?
I think to just be a little bit more distinctive so that we're not trying to copy what's there, to show that it's, I'm not an architect, I'll let Klaus maybe speak to that.
Yeah, Klaus from Philip, 435 Northwest 23rd Street. So the inside, you can't really see from these photos, but so the inside of the courtyard, they actually changed the brick to a red brick. So if you were to go, behind the alley, maybe there's a picture of the back parking lot, or you can kind of see it here in the alley. There you go.
I think there is.
So there is a change of material, and so kind of architecturally, we thought it kind of serves 2 purposes. I think it kind of relates to what's happening on the inside of those buildings, and also it sets it apart from those original buildings a little bit to where you can tell that, this is not original to the site, which I guess it isn't anyways, but it sets it apart from that original, or that, that initial commercial construction from the new construction.
Thank you for clarifying.
Were there any, oh, am I on? I can't hear anything. Were there any interactions with the neighborhood on this project? Were there any meetings? Did they reach out and say, we'd like to meet with you about this? Did you guys reach out to the neighborhood?
So we didn't. One, I mean, as staff said, the Mesta Park group, board, whatever it is, submitted their comments recommending approval.
And they did, yeah.
And through the zoning process and this, notice has now been sent multiple times. It's not my standard practice to reach out to neighbors to get their opinion. I typically, neighbors are not, especially HP neighbors, are not bashful about voicing concerns. So that comes through either email or letter or just calling staff. I'm not aware of any calls that were made. Had there been, we would have obviously reached out to meet with them. But short of that, we have not.
I mean, you're right. They did give us their thought. I just want to know if behind the scenes there were any other efforts made on their part to get to you with any concerns that they saw on this project. It doesn't feel that way. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, and this project, the whole entirety of the site has been noticed more than perhaps any project I've been a part of, based upon this is 2 HP hearings, a planning commission, and a city council. So multiple rounds of public notices.
Okay.
Were the neighbors notified via the mailer, like as standard for a residential HP project? Like
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
the surrounding neighbors were?
So they would have received notice via mail for this. They would have also received notice via mail about the rezoning action.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add to that we, in addition to that, we email all of the neighborhood association, preservation review committees if they have one, and Mesta Park does have one that's pretty active. And I even reached out to specifically make sure they noticed that there was something under other business that was in when the SPUD went through, because we don't always, the neighborhoods don't always pay attention to those items when it's not a CA. So I think they were well aware that this was coming through the process.
So staff's recommended approval. You guys are comfortable with the circumstances that they've recommended approval with specific circumstances. You guys are comfortable making those changes and
Correct. And there's some conditions in there we're also comfortable with.
Okay. I can support an approval. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve HPC 2100170 with conditions as stated in the staff report. And specific findings as stated in the staff report.
Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
Unique circumstances.
And unique circumstances as stated in the staff report.
Was there any requirement for wood doors on that unique circumstance? I'm sorry.
I think your mic's not on. Say that again.
The wood doors at the very end in a unique circumstance, and it says require wood doors. That's a specific finding. Was that a condition that wood doors are used? It's not a condition.
Criteria for wood doors is specific to heritage.
Oh.
Except that the guidelines in general suggest wood doors at front entryways. The structure that is proposing the new storefront window and door, for a better word, lack of a better word, already has similar features on it, and those features are very similar to those located on the abutting building as well.
Just for the sake of the motion, I just wanted to be sure. Is he supposed to include unique circumstances, or is that not a part of?
It is not a condition of
Not
the
a
approval as
condition.
written.
I guess you're good.
So are we comfortable with that motion? Commissioner Meacham? Are we comfortable with that motion?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure about the wood doors before, and that the unique circumstance was addressed at the end. Thank you.
Would you like to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Remy, seconded by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge?
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip? Commissioner Jordan?
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham?
Yay.
Commissioner Milner?
Yay.
Commissioner Poore?
Aye.
Commissioner Remy?
Yay.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion was,
Note for the record, Ryan Phillip did not propose
Okay. Perfect. So that motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Ryman Phillip was not present in the vote as he had recused himself. Commissioner Ryman Phillip is back now. So we'll move on to item number 6, HPCA 2100172 at 915 Northwest 18th Street.
Hey, Ben Ramsey, 310 South 5th Street, Yukon.
Before we
Oklahoma.
jump into that, Katie, can you give us a synopsis of this particular
Sure.
project?
So this is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by Ben Ramsey, Holt & Ramsey LLC for Faze Body for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct railing at front porch elective, 2, construct custom trellis at each end of front porch elective, 3, construct masonry landscape edging at flower beds elective, 4, install window and previously closed window opening elective, 5, install ceiling fan at front porch elective, and 6, reconstruct masonry wall and gate elective. Staff has recommended approval for all items except for item 2. That approval is recommended with conditions on some documentation of the proposed fence and gate to be submitted to staff. And we recommended continuance on item 2, which is the trellis that would be more permanently enclosing the front porch than staff felt the guidelines support. We have seen some techniques for providing some screening and some enclosure at front porches that is more temporary in nature. That might be worth considering, but staff didn't think that permanently installing the trellises at each end was consistent with the guidelines.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. I'm sorry. Can you proceed?
Oh, sorry. Ben Ramsey, 310 South 5th Street, Yukon, Oklahoma.
Perfect. Okay, so staff has recommended approval on 13456, a continuance on item number 2. For me, questions that we had were concerning the back fence and the height of that particular fence. And then I really struggle with the custom trellises, their particular permanence on the front porch. I don't think the guidelines support that in particular. And there was some concern about the back gates and potentially their design, I believe, that was surfaced as well. So can you comment on all 3 of those items, please?
Okay, so let's see. First one is trellis.
The back fence height.
Back fence height, 8 feet.
What's that?
8 feet.
8 feet?
Yes.
There was some question about whether its placement, I believe on was it a footing or a stem wall? What was it?
There is an existing stem wall that would require demolition to
Okay.
make way for the new fence. Basically, we don't want to interfere with the tree, which is uprooting that stem wall.
I can't hear you very
I'm
well.
sorry, soft talker.
You can move the mic if you want to pull that closer to you. There you go.
Gotcha.
Then we can hear you.
Sorry, guys. The back stem wall is actually being uprooted by a tree. In effort to avoid the tree and allow the tree to remain, we're kind of notching around back into the property, but the demolition would require taking out that stem wall to provide a new footing for a triple width concrete wall.
So the fence will remain at 8 feet. It won't be higher than 8 feet off of the ground, correct?
Correct.
At any
From
point?
grade, 8 feet.
Okay. Pretty comfortable with that. What about the trellises and their particular placement? I don't believe
Yeah, the trellis was a wish from the owner that I just wanted to do diligence on and bring it to your attention. I understand it's not in the guidelines. They want to make it clear that it would be semi-temporary, attached with maybe clips or dowels, but not be a permanent fixture. But I see it, just like you do, as a permanent fixture.
Okay, perfect.
We've denied other similar structures, including like a decorative trellis over a gate that was in the front yard. So to me, this is similar, and they're trying to just say not to recreate possible historic items.
Yeah, I totally understand. I was solely acting on behalf of the owner.
So that's that. Everything else is good.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Just one question from staff for the applicant. So if you're in agreement on the trellis, we could either deny or you could withdraw that item if you don't anticipate needing a continuance to come back with a different proposal.
No continuance.
Okay. Would you like us to just record that as withdrawn?
Yes, please.
Okay. So that doesn't require any action.
Okay.
Because item 2 is withdrawn. We just need a motion on the remaining items, 1 and then 3 through 6.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay. Any other questions from commissioners, or do we have a motion on 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
I make a motion to approve HPCA 2100172, items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks. All right, that takes us through the cases for individual consideration. We'll move on to item number 7 under other business.
We have one item under other business. We have a request for a recommendation to the Planning Commission for the approval of replating of a site. This is at 2221 North Ollie, Mesta Park, Ward 6, and the case number is C7373. This will look familiar. The commission has seen this property and this project numerous times and has previously approved a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of the 4 buildings at this site. Due to just the logistics of the development of the site, the applicant has pursued splitting the lot into 4 individual parcels, and that requires a replat, which is not something that we typically see, but it has to go to Planning Commission, and therefore it has to come to HP Commission first for recommendation. The staff report notes that we do have guidelines that address the size of lots when we create a new lot or we divide a lot. This is a quite unusual site in that it's at the edge of the district. It's abutting almost entirely commercial properties and surface parking and not abutting other residential structures. It was developed historically as a very large multifamily structure, so staff did recommend approval, or staff recommended a recommendation of approval for the replat.
Okay, is the applicant present? Do you wish to speak? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Jake Shuffler, 8487 King Oak Drive.
Do we have any commissioners that have any questions on this or have any intention to potentially, Cassie, Commissioner Porter?
I just want to clarify that they'll come back when they come with designs to us.
Well, they actually already have the CA.
Okay.
It's already been through HP and was presented as a single lot with 4 separate structures, and now they're just dividing so that each structure has its own lot.
Okay, that was my question as well. So I guess, so every bit of the design has been approved, but the legal lot split?
Correct.
Okay.
So before we hear from our citizens, I mean, it sounds like we're going to vote to approve. Do you wish to say anything, or do you want to hear a vote?
No, I'm ready to
Okay, do we have a motion? No, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Poore.
Is it a motion or?
It is a motion and vote to recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to recommend. Okay. C-7373 at 2221 North Ollie for replatting of the site. Recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner.
Just to confirm, sorry, that's with the findings in the staff report. Is that okay?
Agenda. With the specific findings and, was there any other conditions? I'm sorry. With the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Yay.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham,
Yay.
Commissioner Milner,
Yay.
Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Remy.
Yay.
Motion passes.
Okay, that was approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, communication and reports. I believe we have 12 items on administrative approval.
Yes, long list of administrative approvals. 2 withdrawn items, no administrative closings to report, and nothing else of note under our other categories down to municipal counselor.
Anything from the municipal? Okay. Let's see. Our next meeting date, the regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, January 5th, 2022 at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting were received November 30th, 2021. New information on projects continued from today's meeting. The upcoming meeting must be presented to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, December 7th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 8th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main. Do we have any other items from commissioners? Any other citizens that wish to be heard? The meeting is adjourned at 3:56. Gonna enjoy my chocolate.